Now, before we get to it, I want, Joe, you have that cut ready?
Yeah.
This is important. This is from yesterday. And for those of you asking me why I keep covering this, there's breaking news every day about the most important scandal of our generation. There's other stuff to get to, too. We'll get to it. But this is critical stuff. And every day there's a new development in this because it's such a layered, involved scandal. Just remember the overall about 30,000-foot view, though. The Obama team spied on the Trump team. There's an article by Eli Lake I included in the show notes today that shows how they did it, unmasking the Trump team identities in recorded conversations with foreign agents. But they still can't seem to admit, whether it's management level people at the FBI, that something went wrong here. But here's an interesting development. Before we play the cut, this is Christopher Wray yesterday, the FBI director, that is, yesterday up on the Hill testifying. He's being questioned by Tom Cotton, a senator who's been on top of this, about a Russian businessman with some potentially shady connections named Oleg Deripaska. Now, so you understand the context of why I think he's asking this question. There are now new allegations, folks, these are deeply, deeply troubling, that Christopher Steele, who was the working through the Hillary campaign to get information on Trump, the former British spy, that Steele may have been being paid at the same time by Oleg Deripaska. Now, folks, this guy, Deripaska, is deeply connected to Vladimir Putin. Can you imagine the 56th layer of hell that would develop here if we found out that the British spy producing for the Hillary Clinton team negative information on Trump was simultaneously being paid by a guy connected to Vladimir Putin? Can you even imagine? So, as I always say, remember the names. Remember the name Oleg Deripaska in context. It's about a minute long. But listen to that and listen to how he answers about the dossier, too, which goes to show you that they're in a world of trouble here. Play the cut.
Mr. Wray, are you aware of a gentleman by the name of Oleg Deripaska?
I've heard the name.
Is it fair to call him a Putin-linked Russian oligarch?
Well, I'll leave that characterization to others, and certainly not in this setting.
Chuck Grassley, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, last week sent a letter to a London-based lawyer who represents Mr. Deripaska and asked if Christopher Steele was employed either directly or indirectly by Oleg Deripaska at the time he was writing the so-called Steele dossier. Do you know if Christopher Steele worked for Oleg Deripaska?
That's not something I can answer.
Could we discuss it in a classified setting?
There might be more we could say there.
Thank you. And maybe we'll hear back from the lawyer in London as well to give us a straight answer. Jim Comey testified before this committee in an open setting last summer, and he referred to the Steele dossier as salacious and unverified. Does that remain the FBI's position?
I think maybe there's more we can talk about this afternoon on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and you hear Tom Cotton, Joe? Okay, thanks. Like, that was really useless. Thank you for not answering any of our questions. Why is Deripaska now a target, an interesting target for a U.S. senator in an open hearing on Capitol Hill? Folks, because if you read the Lee Smith piece, there are some interesting connections here between Deripaska and Steele. Was he being paid, Steele, at the same time by Hillary's team? At the same time he was being paid by a Russian oligarch with connections to Vladimir Putin? Folks, what else do you need to hear Russian collusion if that's the case? What else do you need? There was Russian collusion between the Hillary team and them. What else do you need to know? If that is in fact the case, there is a world of trouble brewing. Now, why is Deripaska's name in the news again all of a sudden? Another interesting angle. And I'm going to wrap this up here. Mark Warner, the Democrat senator from Virginia, who was contacted by a lobbyist, keep in mind, Warner has oversight capabilities over the intelligence community. He's a Democrat senator from Virginia. Warner is now on the record in a text exchange with a lobbyist trying to connect him with Christopher Steele, the spy. In other words, lobbyists reached out, hey, Steele wants to talk to you, wants to talk to the Democrat senator. Who does the lobbyist also work for? Oleg Deripaska.
Oh,
that hurts. Oh, boy, that's a gunshot, ribs, liver, kidney shot there. Folks, it only gets worse for the Democrats. This is why, and I want to just make two final points on this. This is why, number one, I can't say in strong enough terms to the Democrats out there, it is time to take a bath on this. Remember my analogy. Corporate filings, you lose a lot of money. You're going to lose it over a few quarters. A lot of times these corporations will take a bath. That's the expression. Just take all the losses now. Get the stock price hit done and over with, and let's move on. Democrats, liberals, it's time to take a bath. This thing just gets uglier and uglier and uglier. If it is now revealed that Hillary Clinton was in fact paying a guy who was also being paid by the Russians and a guy connected to Putin himself, do you realize that the hellstorm that's about to come your way? Just give it up. Now you have a Democrat senator exchanging texts with a lobbyist who also works for the guy who's connected to Putin to try to connect him to Steele? And you're going to stick to this? Holy Moses. So number one, time to take a bath. Number two, Joe.
yes.
Now, it makes absolute sense why they need Mueller and they need the special counsel. This is why they pushed for it the entire time. They need Mueller, and I have a piece from Breitbart. It's a little older, but it's a pretty good piece about Brennan. John Brennan, as I told you, the CIA director, who I think was one of the puppet masters in this. Brennan, on the record, Joe, there should be, if Trump tries to fire Mueller, no, they shouldn't follow that order. Brennan, terrified they're going to fire Mueller. Why? They need Mueller. Why do they need Mueller, Joe? They need Mueller to go, look, shiny red ball, shiny red squirrel, as I said on Fox the other day. That's what they need. If they don't have Mueller, they have nothing. The focus will be entirely on what really happened. Russian collusion with the Democrats. They need Mueller to constantly take a scalp. Oh, let's go get Mike Flynn on false statements that the FBI, by the way, on the record, didn't think were false. Let's go arrest George Papadopoulos for fibbing. Mm-hmm. Folks, do you understand? Joe, is this making sense? They need a distraction technique. Yeah. And if Mueller goes away and the investigation goes away with nothing, with no Russian collusion, because there isn't any, all of a sudden, the media will no longer be able to ignore the real Russian collusion that happened between the Hillary campaign, the DNC, and actual Russians. They need Mueller. That is why they are so passionate about keeping this special investigation on the front page of the news. Because even though we'll never find anything on Russian collusion because it didn't happen, you can't create facts. They need it as a distraction technique. It's starting to all make sense now, folks. All come.